So, this is going to be the pilot episode for the Freeform cast. I actually have no idea what the hell I had in mind specifically for what I wanted to do with this show. I guess essentially I just needed a place to vent, and more than that, I kind of wanted a place to be able to, I guess, synthesize a lot of my ideas with regards to what I've read, thoughts, previous experiences, what I've learned so far, what I've heard, things along those lines. So, I guess a little thing about me, as we go along, depending on whether or not I feel comfortable and confident with this, I may or may not reveal more details about me and some of my personal life, but aside from that, right now, I don't think that's necessarily important. Today, very quickly, I actually just want to talk about a few things. One of them actually is sleep. Now, I didn't exactly have the best night's sleep last night, actually. It, I made the mistake yesterday, actually. I was going to go see someone, and I made the mistake of buying and drinking, I think one of those Rockstar sugar-free drinks. I really should be staving off of those energy drinks completely, not only because of the caffeine, but from, I think, some of what I've read. There was also something about the acidity inside of those energy drinks, which can eat away at the enamel in your teeth, which I can taste pretty damn well. So, something for me to consider. But the other mistake, the mistake I made yesterday was that I think it was around 7:30 in the late afternoon, early evening, and I had one of those. I had the Rockstar Sugar Free, and not the wisest choice, because when I tried to go sleep earlier to last night around 9, actually, I only really got about maybe a few hours of sleep, and I don't even know if I really could constitute it as sleep. It was strange, really. Had some night terrors. Ended up waking up like at midnight or close to midnight. I only got a few hours of sleep, really, and yeah, I ended up staying up until 4, woke up at around 8:30 now, and now we're here. So, the first obvious thing is that, and I guess my bit of advice there would be, you don't want to go drinking anything that's caffeinated. This would even include something like sodas. Sometime within, I'd say 6 hours, around the time that you're usually supposed to be asleep, or that you're expecting to be going to sleep. So if you're looking to go to sleep at, say, for example, 9 p.m. today, since there's something in particular that you need to be well rested for the next day, or you have to just get up early, then you'll want to skip out on any sort of caffeinated beverage for several hours away from that time, because otherwise it can actually it can interfere with your desired sleeping pattern, and as a result you're not going to get you're going to get subpar rest, is what I'm getting at. As for the amount that's needed, actually that's something that has still fascinated me, and I think it's kind of funny how there isn't an exact answer as to how much people really need. There's general guidelines. I think we're all familiar with the old 8-hour a day figure. but from what some of what I've read and from what I understand, most people on average will get anywhere between 6.5 to about 7.5 hours of sleep. Personally, I have had multiple days where I've only gotten about maybe 6.5 to 7.5, and it's not bad at all, actually. The funny thing is that too much sleep can actually end up being more harmful to you than too little. And that's just, I would imagine, because of, in large part, the extended hours of total body inactivity, which can, what's the exact science behind it? All I know is that those extended hours of rest, it basically just makes you fat. That's all it is, and that's just because the additional hours of inactivity. So you're better off most of the times going from 6.5 to 7.5. I think the Evo Bio explanation for this as well is that on average, our ancestors would usually head to rest for the night anywhere between 2 to 3 hours after sundown. This could of course vary during different parts of the year. If it's during the fall and the sun sets at around 5 or 6, then they would go to sleep at what we would presume to be 8 or 9 p.m. Whereas at later times they would fall asleep at 10 to 11 p.m. and then they'd wake up usually much earlier in the morning, typically before daybreak or dawn. Anywhere between 4 to 6 in the morning, just as the sun is rising. But they wouldn't always go for the full 8 hours, and I don't think it was always the case that they would. I think the advantage, the Evo Bio advantage to getting in, optimal rest during the 6.5 to 7.5 hour period compared to if you slept, for 8 or more, 8 to 10, is that it's less time being inactive and it's also less time being in a vulnerable position. That's of course one of the great pitfalls of human sleeping, is that when you're unconscious, it puts you in a highly vulnerable position, not only to your fellow man, but also to predators at night. So being able to get in what you need with a little less time and more optimally, I imagine would have helped you, at least back then. I guess one other thing I should point out is that I'm just trying not to ramble too much, but I want to do my best for this show not to spread any misinformation or disinformation if I can help it. If I have a layman's understanding of a certain subject, it's going to show, and I won't be afraid to admit it. That said, I think it's best, not only for the show, but also for whoever's listening, that whatever the subject is that is being spoken about, that there's actually at least some experience, or that we're at the very least more well informed than the average layman, so that we can come to more informed opinions. Me personally, the thing I found is that yes, it definitely has importance, especially with regards to something like weight loss, especially if you're trying to stave off a bunch of fucking fat. But on I think just as important actually as your sleeping ritual and your sleeping routine is also the morning routine and the morning ritual that you perform after you wake up. I'm personally not afraid to admit this myself, but it's something that I've been having to need to address a bit, only because it kind of does get in the way of just me starting the day and just getting through the day. Is every time when I wake up, I get some morning wood and I just end up rubbing it out. Now, of course, some of you may be thinking, hey, that's not such a bad thing, you're just taking care of a little itch, that's all. I don't know about that, only because this little morning pattern that I guess I've slipped into, I can end up laying in bed like that for an additional 1 to 2 hours, which would not be good for me. It would basically, I mean, I may as well have just been asleep those extra couple hours if I needed it. So then once I wake up, then that wouldn't even really be the first thing come across my mind. I'd just up and go, let's go. But no, it's just one of those things that I've been having to reconsider my relationship with, and that I know I'm going to need to address. Good thing is that I decided, you know what, for the sake of the show, well, assuming everything goes well, and for my own sake, I should probably quit with that stupid fucking habit. So, jerking off in the morning, I mean, if it takes you more than 15 minutes to rub it out, then chances are you're better off just not doing it, period. And as for the final verdict with regards to sleep, I mean, unless you have like some sort of serious like medical condition, most people, or at the very least most adults, now this doesn't go necessarily for children and teenagers, but most adults ages 19 and above, usually 6.5 to 7.5 hours of sleep is, I would think, fairly plenty for all of the health benefits that you would need to get from sleep, whether it be the fat loss, the mental clarity, the well-restedness, in general, not feeling like shit. I actually, I remember a point in time where, and I think this is actually what led to my my rapid gain in weight as well, was that I had, so a little something about me is that I worked as I worked at nights, third shift at a community college as a custodian. And those nights I would usually spend, some nights we would go in at 8 in the evening and we'd leave at 4 in the morning. Those nights were actually fairly pleasant because by the time that we had gone out, still at 4 in the morning, the sun wasn't out yet, and it wouldn't be out yet until the next couple hours, which would give me plenty of time to be able to drive back home, not have the sun glare in my eyes, go home, go to bed, and go to sleep, and at least feel like I had somewhat of a good night's rest, sleeping at night like I should have been, but instead I was working. That was from 8 to 4, and that was only some of the time when I was there. Most of the nights, I actually worked from 10 in the evening till 6 in the morning. Sometimes, actually, during those 8 to 4 shifts, which happened fairly often, I would go in early at around 7 while the sun was out, and I would take on some overtime assignments, which wouldn't end until like around 5. And that was when the dawn was finally starting to break. So, my mistake. Ended up working, what was that now? 10-hour shifts? I mean, fuck. Or 11? I don't fucking know. 10, 11, almost. Yeah, 7 to 6, roughly, something like that. Yeah, that's almost fucking 12 hours. Yep. 7 to 5, 7 to 6. Yeah, something like that. On average, during those hours, during those days, those nights, where I worked from 10 to 6, I would average about 5, maybe. But usually, I try to get in about 5 hours of sleep. From like around 6:30 to 7, the time I usually got home, to noon, 12 noon, or 1 or 2 in the afternoon. Reason being because I wanted to be able to squeeze in more extra time to head to the gym, and then afterwards meal prep, and then do what I needed to do to get ready for work, prep for work, meal prep for work, all that. Only issue was, well, among other things, which led to my rapid weight gain, was, again, regularly sleeping about 5 to 6 hours a day. So not getting enough rest, not getting enough sleep, period. On top of that, during a summer in weather that was really stuffy, that just fucking outright sucked. And on top of that, me straining myself a bit too much in the gym when I should have been taking it a little more easy. But, you know, I don't really regret that part. The part I do regret is for one, the eating habits that I had. And on top of all that, during lunchtime at work, we'd be able to go off site to go get our lunches, whatever, right? I kept getting a lot of fast food, which, I mean, there you go, all the extra fucking calories, empty fucking calories. That was what got me. And led to me sort of ballooning over the course of several months. Went from actually 190 to 295. I reached 295 actually around November, I think. Or I think it was in October. November. Somewhere around that time. And that was the heaviest I ever got. Now, when I got to that point, I was a bit disgusted with myself. I won't lie. I was disgusted with myself. And I did not like the fact that, hey, I'm approaching the big 3. I should probably make some fucking changes. And I have, and I did. Right now, I'm happily down to 270, but I would be more happy being down to around 240. I definitely have, I've made some improvements, with regards to not only my diet, my habits, but also with just my general weight loss strategy as well. Actually, what I found was that a lot of regular, hard, intermittent fasting, so sometimes, like most times, even going without water, did a lot for me, not only to shed the water weight, but also to actually shed some of the visceral fat on my body. Actually, just today, I just went without fucking breakfast. I'm thinking I might go without any food for the next, I don't know. Because when was the last time I ate? I think earlier one. So then I probably won't eat later on today until evening time, maybe. Fuck, I might not even eat till tomorrow, really. Only because today I am fasting. It's considered sunnah, and I intend to honor that, so I will be doing that. Fun fact about sunnah fasting, or about fasting within Islam in general, is that typically on the days that you're to go without fasting, that you're to go without food and water on those fasting days, is that you will usually want to just, the basic rule is that you're not supposed to smoke, you're not supposed to have sex, so no masturbation either, no food, no drink, try not to break the fast, read the Quran or learn a little bit more about the faith if you can, or its history, whatever interests you the most. And lastly, what else? There's nothing much else to it other than just that from sunrise to sunset, no food, no drink. You're just not supposed to eat, and you're not supposed to drink until the sun is set. But there's definitely videos and strategies for how to get through those days without being seriously dehydrated, and obviously it's not something for those who have medical conditions that would prevent them from otherwise doing it. So I'd advise at least some caution there. Just make sure that in terms of health that you're well off enough to where you don't really need to worry about that. You could just do it. Yeah, I have to say, going back to sleep. That's a funny thing to say. Going back to sleep. No, yeah, I guess I am just gonna go back to sleep. 7.5 hours. Usually 5 hours a day. That just fucked me up. And that, along with a bunch of other bad eating habits. Actually, I think I do remember, I don't know where it was that I got this from. But something about how bad sleeping habits, or not getting enough sufficient rest, actually can lead to more weight gain. But it wasn't necessarily because of the inactivity or the lack of the sleep itself. It's not like your body is suddenly, in response to that, producing more fat. That's not what it was. I think what it simply was that because you had the explanation was that because of the brain fog, and because you didn't have the mental clarity, because you didn't get enough rest, you tend to make more poor judgments, which pours into and affects your dietary decisions as well. So there you go. You could, hey, maybe you get by just fine on 5 hours a day and you feel okay, but think about how that 5 hours a day could be impacting what it is that you're regularly putting into your mouth versus 6.5 to maybe 8 or 8+ hours a day, where you're not making as many bad decisions. I think for me, it's, once a habit's been set down, once you get it down, you got it down. You don't have to fucking worry about it. So 7.5 hours. Yeah, that seems to be the golden number. Speaking of community colleges, though, so the good thing, and I think I'll just try and keep this one quicker, is I had only previously finished one semester of community college, and for the next year and a half, I just sort of ended up fucking off, which hasn't really paid well, but I'm kind of glad I did, only because it didn't feel like time wasted, but well, hey, it led me to knowing what it is that I actually really do want to do with myself. And for that, I am grateful. I'm fucking lucky, too, that I even... Well, I guess I am privileged enough to have been able to, so thank God for that. But, yeah, no. Hey, now I'm going back to school, only because I'm looking to pursue something with regards to anthropology. So, there is that. If there's any advice I can give about college, it's that, here's the thing, is that, do I think it's maybe possible to be able to juggle a full-time or, a part-time job and college? Yeah, I could definitely see that, but a full-time and college and then whatever else you have to do outside, I don't think so. There's a lot of talk about how, people somehow manage it. I usually don't buy into that. The whole purpose for me is that if you're going to college for something, you want to do it not just to pass the class. Obviously, you would want to pass the class, but you want to actually take in and absorb what it is that the professor or the instructor is trying to put into you. That's what the fuck you're paying for. That's essentially what it is. You're paying not only for the opportunity to get to, pass the class and take the test and whatnot, but you're paying for an education. Whatever interests you, whatever happens to get your fire going, if that's what you can see yourself doing, if that's the direction you want to go, just fucking go for it. Just don't worry too much about it. College step. Now that is something that I might have to talk about in another episode, but the only advice I can give now is that if you have a shitty class, right out the gate that you're not going to pass it or you're not going to do well, you're better off just dropping it as soon as you can, and make sure that you drop it before the W date. Only because if it usually doesn't look good on a transcript when there's a W on there, and it's for a class that you knew you weren't going to do well in, and all it's gonna look like is damage control for your GPA. So, right now my GPA isn't all that it because of some decisions I made, my GPA isn't all that, even though it was a bit better some time ago. So fuck it. I kind of had to quit I had to drop my summer class only because I knew I was not going to pass it. It was in Cisco. It was just an online technical class that I was taking that would have afforded me some college credit, but I just knew I wasn't going to do well. It was a subject matter that was definitely fucking difficult for me. I just had to drop it only because I knew, this is not pertinent to my major, and this is not something that I actually see myself going for now, because I thought I did, but I actually kind of don't want to go working in the fucking IT tech industry. So, that's out the way. Lastly, whatever other college advice that I might have, because guess what, I'm going back to school now. Advice to myself and to you, just stay on top of your shit. Just don't try your best not to get behind. Actually, if anything, try your best to get ahead and stay ahead in your class if you can. You'll just save yourself so much fucking stress, and you'll save yourself, well, a lot of headache and heartache or whatever. Life will just be a lot better. I just know that for sure. Oh yeah, this. I had a thought just yesterday about a common saying that definitely got me thinking. I guess there's a lot of ways you could philosophize about this, but I personally have come to really enjoy this saying myself, personally. I think it's just because of the relevance it holds to my life now. And it's something that there's a lot of layers to it. I guess I'll break it down. Let's break it down bit by bit. So, all that glitters ain't gold. Now, usually, I mean, the context depends, it varies, but it's kind of hard to tell what some folks usually mean by that. Usually what I take from that saying is that not everything that, it's obvious, not all that glitters ain't gold, right? But it's... What was it that I was getting at? Not everything... So, all that glitters ain't gold, right? Not everything that is... Not everything that is seemingly bountiful and beauteous and worthwhile, like from a cursory glance, is gold. It's not something that's, it's not an actual golden experience. It's not an actual something that will really enrich your life. Basically, all it is that all that glitters ain't gold. Obviously shit like silver and bronze or whatever, but shiny, sparkly, that kind of bullshit. But I think it's meant to draw a distinction between something that is golden and something that's gilded. Because something that's golden it's just golden inside and out, all throughout. But something that's gilded, it's only surface level. The rest is either hollow or it's of a not golden material, right? The thing that... There's a lot to draw from this. The highlight... All that glitters ain't gold. So a few things. Someone's highlight reel should not be the reason why... someone's highlight reel should not invalidate your efforts. All that glitters ain't gold. Someone could be they could be fucking living it up and it looks like they have it all, but for all you know, man, they could be seriously impoverished, whether it be socially, spiritually, maybe even financially, really. You don't really know. So all that glitters ain't gold. Things are not as they appear. That's one way to look at it. I'm trying my best not to lose it right now, because the other way that I like to look at it is that, well, it's telling that gold is is what's being used here. I think that's the operative word. Something I thought about was how, civilization and our societies, period, were not built upon gold. They weren't built upon those sorts of things. They weren't built upon these rare, precious, fine metals that only really have much value to those of a bourgeois, a petty ruling class. No, the thing that actually is what has made us us, and what's gotten us to where we are, it's not the fucking gold that some assholes really value and cherish and play with. It's not this bullshit that has been the reason that so many people have done horrible things to each other for. It's the dirt. Usually what has built our societies has been our agriculture, our dirt. That's one way I like to look at that saying, is that all that glitters isn't gold. Not everything that is not everything that's really shiny has an inherent intrinsic value to it. I guess you could in a way say that it's meant to be a commentary on the on how monies could be the roots of all evil. Gold being one of those things that inspires such things. Whoever becomes enamored with that kind of thing, whoever becomes enamored with gold, I mean, once you become enamored with it, eventually you just become cursed. Lastly, what was the other one? There was another... It speaks to the sophistication of a language when you can make a distinction like that between something that's golden and something that's gilded. That's also something I noticed, and definitely something that I can appreciate. Not a lot of people like to pay attention to the language, but it's definitely very important that you do so. I think that's about it. Yeah, that's all I really had to say on the matter. I didn't really initially prepare that much for this episode. I just wanted to shoot the shit. As for the first official, I was thinking of doing something more formal. I'm thinking of alternating between me just sort of going on and rambling and episodes where there's actually more of a structure. So, I'll definitely have to look at that. You know what? Yeah. I'll definitely have to figure this out more as I go along. But anyways, I think that concludes today's program. I've been your host, indiscreet or discreet anonymous person, and this has been the Freeform Cast pilot. Appreciate you listening. I mean, maybe you found this interesting. I don't fucking know. Yeah. Alright, well, enjoy your week.